Hello and welcome to Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. We're really excited to launch our fourth season of Scribes and Songsters from River Books, a recently opened independent bookstore in Amisburg. And our guests today are two of the people responsible for establishing and operating River Books. First up, we'll meet Richard Peddie. Originally from Amherstburg, Richard is the author of two very successful books, a best-selling autobiography entitled Dream Job, and a second book titled 21 Leadership Lessons. And he has the business credentials to justify those two book titles. Here's the short version of his life. In 1996, Richard became president and CEO of the Toronto Raptors. In 1998, the Maple Leafs bought the Raptors, and he became the first president and CEO of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which he led for 14 very busy years, building Air Canada Centre, BMO Field, Maple Leaf Square, and bringing Major League Soccer to Canada with the launch of Toronto FC. Just before retiring, he helped sell the company for a cool $2 billion. Richard received an honorary doctorate from the University of Windsor in 2001. In 2016, he was inducted into the American Marketing Hall of Fame as a mentor. Today, he's actively involved in the Richard Peddie Leadership Initiative at the Odette School of Business, where he helped create 21st century leaders. In addition to operating River Books, Richard serves as head of the Amherstburg Community Foundation, whose mission it is to help make Amherstburg the best small town in Ontario to live, visit, and enjoy, as judged by its economy, quality of life, environment, and inclusiveness. Wow. Welcome to Scribes and Songsters.
No, thank you. Thanks for, it's an honor to be kicking off your new season.
Well, thank you. It's really delightful to be here and in this absolutely wonderful bookstore.
Thanks again.
Now, many people know about your very busy life, but what were you like as a teenager in Amisburg?
Well, actually, I grew up a little away from here and beside the 11th hole at the Roseland Golf Course. I was active. I wasn't a great athlete. I mean...
I wondered about that.
No, I was a good golfer. I made the championship flight in the Essex Kent Golf Tournament, but my brother was the better athlete. I was a below average student. I never graduated from high school, and I snuck into Windsor through the back door. But, you know, I had a great family growing up, taught great values, taught the benefits and the joy of reading that stuck with me. And then I went on to university, and I think I found myself. My marks got steadily better, and again, reading books, and then I moved on into the business world.
So, and as I mentioned, people know a lot about your careers because they've been so public. What don't we know about you?
What don't we know? Well, I can work a room. I mean, when I was the impresario, the host of Air Canada Centre, and we'd have VIPs come in, and you know, I'd be at the front gate. When the VIPs that come into our director's lounge, I'm always welcoming them. That's something I have to work at. It looks like it's really, but I prefer to be quiet, but you wouldn't know it when I'm interacting with customers. I can upsell here very well, but that's just something I've learned to do. And my preference would be with a good book or on a bike or walking through the woods, I'm more comfortable with. So I'm not as outgoing as I appear.
That is really interesting because when you think about people who do the kinds of things that I've just described, you do imagine that they've got this big aggressive personality and devil may care.
Well, you know, the imposter syndrome, right? A lot of my peers who went on and had great careers, we've often talked about that. Like, okay, so I'm now on my third presidency, and I'm thinking, when are they going to wake up and realize I really can't do this job? Kind of like this job. Lori and I are learning how to sell books. We know how to read them. We love picking them out, but running an independent bookstore is a new learning experience.
Not for the faint of heart.
No, but you know what? this is also a lot of philanthropy for us. You said we're both Lori and I are on the Amisburg Community Foundation, where we want to do those things that you described so well. And, we stepped back, my wife and I, and said, okay, the foundation can only do so much. What can we do? We love this community. I sold a company for $2 billion, and I got some of that money, and not a lot, but enough. And allows me to do these type of things. So faint of heart, it's an investment in the community. That's really what we're thinking. It's not, when I was running Maple Leaf Sports or those other companies, there's always a return on investment. We built Air Canada Centre for $360 million. You better get a return on investment. I'm not thinking of this as a money investment. Of course, I want it to do well financially, but it's really an investment in the community.
You talk about being successful, but also failing. But one of the things that I thought, I wonder if he has any regrets. Is there anything in that whole big life of yours that you regret?
I'd like to hire a couple different general managers.
No names, right?
I talk about some of them in there.
Yeah.
And one of them since passed away. So, you know what? Hiring people is the challenge. And I had wonderful teams. We were very disciplined. We looked at best practices. We were evidence-based. We were very visionary. So our business decisions were really solid. Like almost all of our business decisions and all the companies I work for worked out well. But I can't say that about I always hired the best people, because I really believe that hiring people, you try to make it scientific, but that maybe gets you all the research and due diligence, gets you 50% of the way there, but you can still be surprised. So, I had a summer where I hired a general manager for both the Leafs and the Raptors, and I'd like both of those back.
So talking about failure, how important is it to fail at some things?
Well, you learn from failing. So, and it's inevitable, and you got to move on from it. But I think I always talk about the 5 stages of acceptance. If you go through all 5 stages, you're wasting a lot of time. And I see that with a lot of leaders. You see it with public relations. They'll do something really stupid. They'll make a mistake, and they rationalize it. They get angry. They'll do all these things before they just say, I made a mistake. Get on with it. The faster you admit your mistakes, you're showing you're human. You've got time to correct it. So you're going to make them. And no one bats perfect. And so just get on with it.
How important is it to surround yourself with good people?
Well, one of my chapters is people make the difference. And I learned that early. I think I learned it when I joined Colgate, Palmolive. It was called the full name. So it's Colgate, the toothpaste and stuff like that. Well known, great company. That they put me through a training thing. So I worked in the sales department, selling soap in the Niagara Peninsula. Then I worked in market research, developed a real bias for market research that I follow to this day. And third thing, I worked in the plant, and you're working with the unionized in that. And that's really part of the learning curve. Just, doing all of that just moves you to a better leader.
And I was really interested in the book. You talk about writing down your dreams. And, I've heard and I've seen people on YouTube saying, write your vision board. I was surprised to hear it from you.
Well, so I wrote my dream that I wanted to run a basketball team. I couldn't play worth a lick. So I wrote down that I'm not going to be able to play in the NBA, so I want to run a team someday. And I wrote that in a journal when I was 20 years old. I did not realize at the time that there's been research that says you have more success if you write your dream down. And first of all, if you have a dream, that's your first check. The second check is so you get probability increase because you have a dream. The second one, when you write it down, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul says you have a dream, you write it down. Each day you kind of look at it, and each day you do something to move you towards it. I did not realize what I did that day when I was 20 turned out to be so instrumental, because, I spent 29 years from the moment I wrote that dream down to becoming president of the Raptors. I can't say that every one of those days I thought about being president of a basketball team, but I spent 19 years on learning about marketing and market research and selling and leading people and running plants and finance. Then I took the Skydome job because all sports teams have a facility they play in, and they sell tickets and suites and food and beverage. And then I went on to TSN because one of the biggest revenue items is broadcast. And so each of those, especially the Skydome move, was a conscious move that I was president and CEO of Pillsbury, doing very well. And that came up and I reached for it because I thought, if I'm going to ever run a team, I better learn about the facility.
And you talk about integrity and, a vision, having a vision and a mission and the value of integrity.
Well, a value, and we're seeing it a lot. There's a lot of talk about values right now. Mm-hmm. A value isn't a value until it costs you something. It has to be really real. And I really learned that when in the 80s, when we carried the book In Search of Excellence by Peters and Waterman, it probably was a book about, I was president of Skydome, president of Hostess Potato Chips, and I bought this book. It was the in book for all CEOs to read. And it really talks about having a vision and values. And I went on to Pillsbury, and we had a really strong vision and values. One of them was people make the difference, one of the values. And we made decisions. We made a $5 million decision because one of our values was quality is essential. So I knew the moment we made that decision that the values were authentic at Pillsbury. I go into Skydome, we had vision and values. Maple Leaf Sports, vision and values. So I'm very much a values person, and I think that's in line with integrity.
Mm-hmm. And sort of following along that, you also write about meritocracy. Mm-hmm. I really appreciated that chapter, and I wondered, how difficult is it if you're in a very unionized environment where seniority is really important? Are the two compatible?
I think it is more complex. Mm-hmm. And you're going to interview Lori. I mean, she headed up a union, and I had good relationships with the union. There were times where I think the union protected people that weren't of merit. But, on balance, the unions kept the companies, all the companies, except for Hostess, did not have a union because it was a long time ago, but the other ones did, and I could work along with them. I really liked the whole meritocracy thing because, well, especially running Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, it's the sexiest job in the world. Yeah, like 70,000 people would apply for a job there every year. We should have the best people. And so we really, Jack Welch had a book called Winning. I can't remember if we've got any Jack's books. He's since passed away. And he really talked about meritocracy. And it really resonated with me that if you can attract the best people, then make sure you've got the best people. So every year, I kind of divided them up, and about 20% were the stars. About another 60-70% were the glue. Some of them aspired to be stars. And then there were people that maybe they did not keep up. Maybe they were a bad hire, and we had to move them out. And so often, they often say that if you give them every chance. Everyone got a written evaluation, including Brian Burke. And he said it's the last one he got was at Harvard. And until it's not a weakness till you develop, you've got something you have to do. And we'd identify that. And if they couldn't cut it after a year or so, we'd move them out.
Did you help people, when you had to move somebody out, did you help move them along?
Almost all of the vice presidents that left, mm-hmm. I've kept really good relationships with. Yeah. Because, I had a VP of PR when he was already working for the Raptors when I joined. He was he really knew basketball. John was terrific. But then we started getting bigger. Now we're into hockey. So he can do the sports PR, but now all of a sudden, we own condos, we own restaurants, we've got television things. Now it's a different type of PR person. So we outgrew John. But he's got his own company. He's invested in the Canadian Basketball League. He's doing really well. There was another fellow that went on and he just he started a business up after I let him go. And he's made a lot of money. So you know what? They've done well, but things change for them and for us, and it was better that we let them go. But I try to have them exit in a quality way.
And another thing that I found really interesting and lovely was the idea of saying thank you in a handwritten note. Man, you don't get many handwritten notes.
And that's the beauty of it, because first of all, a lot of people don't say thanks.
Right.
And now it's easy to do it in an email. Very easy. That has some merit, but I'll tell you, if you want to break through the clutter, so every job that I applied for, everybody I came in touch with, so the assistant to the person, send everyone I saw got it. And I can remember, and my batting average, I got offered more jobs that I never took. And I can remember one search headhunter, his assistant came in and said, Richard wrote me a thank you note. He says, oh, that's what Richard does. And then there's stories, I can remember the CEO of Loblaws, John Lederer, said, I walked into Glenn Murphy, and Glenn Murphy went on to run The Gap and all of those things. He had a huge job, a bigger job than I've ever had. He says, Glenn's got your thank you note on his desk. I mean, you know, like people remember you. I did it when I got the Colgate job. I wrote a letter. I got interviewed, wrote a letter to Colgate. And it breaks you through the clutter. I mean, okay, I've got this guy or gal, I'm doing this. Oh, this one wrote a note. I think it can be a tiebreaker.
Yes.
So I tell students, because I give a lot of speeches, that might be the most powerful chapter in the book. And so I've talked to thousands of young students, thousands, and I say, only a couple % of you will ever do this. But I tell you, it's the most important thing. And I joke that it's an analog solution in a digital world, right. But it's very powerful.
Because it makes you feel.
You spent some time on it.
Yes.
And, you know, it all of a sudden arrives on your desk. Yeah. I had a plant manager who retired, and when someone was in his house, Richard, and he says to me, you know, I was in so-and-so's house, and on his fireplace mantle is a thank you note from you.
That's pretty cool.
Powerful.
Sure is.
Yeah. 1993, there was no NBA in Canada. Larry phoned me up. I was running Skydome at the time. I'd had people approach me to get involved in basketball, and he said, I want to bring a basketball team to Canada. Do you know anyone who will help me? And I said, yeah, me. And so I took 6 months. We never got the team, but our group made David Stern, the late David Stern, the commissioner, bring a team, and then someone else got it. Now, Larry went on to buy into the Maple Leafs. He still owns 25% of the company. I went on to TSN, and 2 years later, I end up with the president's job anyhow. So it worked out fine.
I've got about a second. I heard you drive a cool car.
1958 Porsche Speedster and a couple Teslas.
Oh, how cool. We could talk forever, but we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for coming to the River Bookshop in the beautiful town of Amisburg. And we're seeing so many people come in and to see what we've created here. So thanks again.
So take the opportunity to drop by River Books. You'll love it. And you just might run into Richard. When we come back, we'll meet Lori Whiteman and we'll talk to her about her role here in the bookstore. Welcome back to Scribes and Songsters. Our next guest is Laurie Whiteman, a former Essex County Library employee who is now the manager of River Books. It would seem to me that with a library background, she's the perfect person to manage this wonderful bookstore. And it must be such a great job to be surrounded by books every day. So let's ask her. Welcome to Scribes and Songsters.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
So do you have fun?
I do have fun. I have a lot of fun.
Why leave a library and come to a bookstore?
Short answer is when Richard Peddie asks you, you say, sure. Long answer, it just seemed like such a good opportunity. It seemed like such a good chance to do something good for this town. I love this town. To work with Richard is amazing. I think part of the reason that I loved it was I got to buy like 5,000 books.
And how many people get to do that?
Right. So that was awesome. It was an amazing opportunity, and I didn't think I could say no to it. I think it would have been something I would have regretted.
What's your day like?
My day starts early. I find that I'm always in the morning while I'm having my coffee, I'm thinking about, there's that book. I should make sure I order that one. So I'm always making little notes to myself. A lot of talking with customers about books, about what they've been reading, about what they want to read, about what we should get in the store. We've said from the beginning that our customers, our readers, will curate our collection. And they're doing that. We did a pretty good job, I think, choosing books to begin with, but I'm starting to see now a change of what's coming in, what we're ordering, because it's what they're saying they would like to see. And then I spend a lot of the rest of the day just doing the, day-to-day stuff that you do when you run a bookstore.
When I'm in a bookstore, I love to go around and sort of touch books. And it's like when I go to a place where there are really, really old buildings, I like to go and touch the buildings. Do you ever get the urge to just go around and touch your books?
I do it all the time. It's funny because there's this weird thing where I think I know every book in the store. But then at the same time, I wander through and I go, I don't remember ordering that one at all. So I do often walk through and pick up a book and look through it and think, I think I might have to buy that one and I might have to read this one. It's an amazing feeling to be in. It's like in the library where you're surrounded by books and you can't read fast enough.
Is being in a bookstore every day a bit like, the cobbler's child who doesn't have shoes? Do you get time to read?
You know what? It's funny. I haven't read in a couple of weeks just because I've been trying to get my feet underneath me with all this. So I haven't, other than to just quickly read like a blurb or maybe a chapter here and there. So I am missing that, but it's very much like that. I'm a bookstore worker that doesn't read. But that's going to change. It's going to change.
Now, so many times I hear people say, people don't read books anymore. If you're under 40, nobody's reading books. What's your experience?
That's so not true. People used to say that in the library. People say it now, I can remember seeing online, who would open a bookstore nowadays? There are so many people that read. There are people that still buy books, they still read books, they want the actual book in their hand. I think probably the biggest thing we hear in this bookstore after, it's beautiful, is, it smells like books. People love the smell of books.
It's so good to hear that. And, 5-10 years ago, I remember everybody saying, no one's going to read a real book. Everyone's going to read from an e-reader or whatever. That seems not to be the case.
It is totally not the case. And the funny thing, I remember hearing a quote that, just when they invented escalators, people didn't stop using stairs. And it's the same thing. When they invent an e-book, people are still reading regular books. And when they invent the book that they, put directly into your brain, people are still going to read regular books. Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to go away. Books have been around for thousands of years. They're still around. So.
Yeah, exactly. How do you make decisions about, what books to get? It's such an amazing decision to have to make.
It is. I listen to everybody. When we were picking out the books that we first started with, we picked what Richard liked, what his wife Colleen liked, what I liked, what I remembered people reading at the library, what my neighbors liked, what my best friend liked, books from bestseller lists, books that won awards. So it was just being open to everything and trying to get a wide variety. And now that we're open, I think we did pretty good. We have books that people are asking for that we don't have, but not as much as I would have thought. I think we managed to do that pretty well.
Yeah. And you've got a lovely children's selection.
Yes. I love children's books. I love children's books that have a message. So I always try and squeeze some of those in there because kids are very open. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of classic books that you'll remember from, when you were a kid. And then we have all kinds of new books that have just come out that are just amazing. There are amazing, amazing authors writing right now, both for children and for adults, that I would love to highlight because they're just, it's the talent out there is just amazing.
What are your plans for the store? Do you have anything out of the ordinary, things that you want to do in here?
We do. We're having all kinds of events coming up, both in the store and upstairs. There will be an event space. So we have all kinds of events coming up. We're having a local birder come in, and he's hoping to bring like a live hawk. So he's going to talk about hawks and birding, and we're going to have so many. We're having different series. So we'll have a racial justice series, and we're having Beverly Jacobs from the University of Windsor will be coming to talk about some Indigenous issues. We're having Peter Slowly, the Chief of Police from Ottawa, will do a virtual event. We'll be having story times on Saturdays for children, so they can come in. We're going to have a young artist, Max, who is just 9 years old. He painted our picture of Jane Jacobs, so he'll come in one day and have a little event where we're hoping maybe he'll paint a little bit while he's here. So we're hoping to be a real third place. And a third place is, your first place is home, your second place is work, and your third place is where you would go in the community to gather. And that's what we hope to be.
That's a great philosophy. And what you're doing is sort of like making the books come to life.
Right, right.
So you work with Richard Peddie. What's he like to work with?
He's pretty good.
Pretend he's not there.
I'm looking over. He's pretty good. Richard is very open-minded. He's an excellent leader. So he knows, he walks a fine line because he really knows how to make you feel valued, but he also knows how to make sure that you're doing your job correctly. I don't think it's too early, and I would say this even if he was sitting right next to me. He's probably the best boss I've had.
Wow. He'd be very happy to hear that, I'm sure. Do you see him using all of these leadership lessons that he's learned?
Yes. It's funny because I read the book when I first met him. I read the book, and it's funny because I'll hear him talk sometimes and I'll think, oh, that's right from the book. That's right from the book. So yeah, he walks the talk and talks the walk as well.
And I understand you're really supportive of local authors.
I am. I love local authors. So we make sure to highlight them. And our front window right now is a display of local authors. I think, again, there's a lot of talent in this area. And I think, if you get the chance to help someone to realize their dream, you should always take that chance.
It's absolutely fabulous. And it's one of the reasons why we started our show, so that local authors would have an opportunity to talk about what they do. Because I agree with you. There's so many incredibly talented people around here. Mm-hmm. So congratulations. I wish you and Richard all the best. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Well, that's it for this edition of the show. I'm so very delighted to be able to start another season introducing Windsor and Essex County to the wonderfully talented people who are part of the literary scene in our communities. Thank you to co-producers Brian Sweet and Gary Glass. And thank you for watching. Your support is really important to all of us. See you next time here on Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. Bye for now.